So a flyback, a perpetual calendar, and a GMT walk into a bar. What's up, guys? It's your boy Rich here, back at it again. And today we have the most multi-function entry-level luxury watch. That is also the world's first in two categories, the Gavox Aurora. I'll show you what I mean. Let's go. So here is the Gavox Aurora, and before we get into all of its functions, what attracted me to this watch is its looks. I really like the layout of this dial. I like these sub-dials at 9 o'clock and at 6 o'clock, and the interface for all of the functions of this watch happens right down here at 6 o'clock. I think this is a very crispy and easily legible dial. I think it is the black and white color combination with the splash of yellow pulls together really nicely. This model is in PVD, but it is also available in steel and in limited quantities of a rose gold finish. It is in 43 millimeters with 50.5 millimeters from lug to lug, 12 millimeters thick, with a 22 millimeter lug width. And at first glance, this looks like a regular chronograph with its crown and different pushers, but it is so much more. So let's get into the functions. Most of the interface is done right down here where it says home, seconds, UTC, timer, chronograph, date, and moon. And here on the first section is where it says home. And this is pretty much where we set the time for wherever we are, where we hang our hat on. So that's pretty self-explanatory. But we'll also notice that the seconds, which is right here at 9 o'clock, is not moving. It's not ticking. Ticking? Did I say ticking? I did, because this is powered by a quartz movement. Michael Happy, the owner of Gavox, partnered for an exclusive quartz movement with Soprod. And for those of us who aren't familiar with who Soprod is one of the leading and better Swiss movement watch manufacturers. And it uses a motor and a bidirectional movement for the first time. And we'll cover more of that later. So as I said, the seconds is not moving here. But if we push it, move it over to seconds right down here, we'll start to see the seconds hand ticking. It will go from 0 to 30 and then back down to 0. And for those of us who don't want to see the ticking to remind us that it might be a quartz, we can always turn it back to the home mode function where we were. But it will also save the battery. And speaking of batteries, it is a 4 to 7 year lifespan, which is a pretty long time. So now if we go to the UTC mode, and this right here is one of the world's first functions of a watch that I mentioned at the top of the show. And here is where we can set the time for anywhere we are, our second time zone basically. So watch what happens when I pull the crown out. We can control the minute or the hour hands, and watch what happens when I control the minute hands. It moves in 15-minute intervals. So why is that instead of going in only 1-minute intervals for the minute hands? Well, according to Gavox's website, 20% of the world's population is not under the normal standard time zone, which means it's not always an equally plus 9 hours ahead or plus 10 hours ahead. It could be 9 hours and 15 minutes ahead, 9.5 hours ahead, or 9 hours and 45 minutes ahead. So this makes it really convenient. So if I was in a country where it was 9:15, I don't have to press the minute hand or the pusher 15 times to get to 15 minutes. I could just press it once. And if it was 9:30, I would just have to press it twice. So that makes it really convenient. And this is the world's first for a watch. So Michael really thought about everything when he designed the second time zone feature. And this comes from the mind of an engineer. And Michael was an engineer. And the next, if we go to, let's see, the timer, this is another first, and this is actually one of my favorite features. So we pull the crown out and we set the time. Let's see. Let's just set it for 1 minute here. And we're going to start to seeing that it starts to go backwards. It starts to count backwards. And that's actually a really cool feature, whereas every other watch counts forward or counts down forward. And so this will count down for 1 minute. And we will see what happens to this in a little bit. I'll be right back so we're not sitting here watching the whole thing for a minute. All right, so we're here in the last 5 seconds of the countdown, so watch what is about to happen. That's pretty cool. You see the way the hands flutter almost in a butterfly effect. Indicating that the time is done. And we don't have to be just in the timer mode for this to work. We can be in any mode we want, and it will take us to the timer mode when we're done. So if we're just back at home with our time, this will happen. And there is no chime or a vibration feature on this. It's visible only. And, you know, per Michael's acknowledgement, he did actually try to incorporate a vibration mode in here. It's been cost prohibitive. So instead, it's very visible. And it will repeat itself every 30 seconds until we get notice. The next mode is the chronograph feature here. So the chronograph feature, it works as you would expect here. The minute hand, though, actually works as a second, and the hour hand will work as a central minute repeater, and the 9 o'clock hand right here will work as the hour indicator. And we get 32 hours, or actually I think it's 31 hours and 59 minutes to count things down, which is a really long time. And if we want to set the time here on a chronograph for, or let's say, let's reset this back to here 12. So it's going to start counting down, and we can pause it at any time by pressing the top pusher here, and then we can press it again, and it continues. But if we want to stop it, and this is where the flyback function comes into play, I'll stop it. It'll go back to 12, but it won't start again until I release the top pusher right there, and then it will begin its countdown. I'll stop it again. It'll go back and then start again as soon as I release it. So that's the chronograph feature. And then we just moved on to the date, and the date is also pretty self-explanatory. The date is over here. So the time here is about 1:50, and the date is at 26. You can, as it indicates right behind there at 9 o'clock with that. And this is all these functions here are done with just 4 hands. It's also a perpetual calendar, because here we'll see that here's the days of the week right here: Sunday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And it ends with Sunday right here at the 4 o'clock hour. And it has the date, the month is all around the chapter ring, and it has well, let me try to pull this forward. Do you see the months around the chapter ring? And we'll notice that there are 4 Januaries here, and that's because it indicates that it's a leap year whenever the months here on the side, where if it's in white, wherever it is on the white, if it's there, it indicates that it's a leap year. The next step is, the moon phase right here. And this is actually a really cool feature here. We can program the moon indicator any way we want. If we only want to see it when it's in a full moon, we can do that. Or we can see the different phases or the different stages of the moon in its various phases here. I hope that can come out here. So it starts all the way through here, right across here, we're at 9 o'clock. It'll indicate whether it's a crescent moon, a half moon, a full moon. It's all right there, and I think that's really, actually, a very cool feature. And we're now at the last mode here at moon. So if we want to get it back all the way to home, we just have to push this down and hold it down for 4 seconds, and it will automatically take us back to home mode. Here we can see the days of the week, like I showed you earlier, and it's rather subtle, but we know it's there. And the reason behind this was that Michael didn't want to clutter the dial too much with different colors and all these different highly visible functions, I guess you would call, including the days of the week and the calendar months. The most important feature to him with the date was the date feature, and that's clearly visible right there. And this is a genuine leather strap. It's more of like a nubuck. It has an oily texture to it, and on the back, Michael actually put Gavox self-removal strap, and that's because it is. It doesn't require any tools to swap out the straps. We just have to remove the pins right here. And there are a variety of different options to go with, and I don't necessarily think that this black is the best look on this black PVD. I think the more of a vintage, oily, sort of a dark brown strap would actually look a lot nicer on this watch. The price of the Gavox Aurora is $1,700. So who exactly is Michael Happy, the owner behind Gavox watches? Well, I can tell you he is a very proud, passionate, and sincere watch person. In fact, he's the kind of person we would want to have a drink with and spend hours talking about watches and the industry. And in fact, that's what we did, minus the drinks, because he's in Belgium and I'm in LA. So our time was spent by phone. And we know the watch industry is a good one, but it can also be very shady. And Michael had some really shocking and interesting stories to tell. But that's really neither here nor there. Then where is it? What? You said it's neither here nor there. So where is it? Anyway, I think those stories would be best shared by Michael, and perhaps we can do that over a podcast one day because Michael is really interesting and has a lot of interesting stories. So how did Michael come up with the Aurora? Well, while most watchmakers already have an idea of the design of the watch and its functions, Michael actually worked backwards. And what I mean by that is that it was in 2010 when Soprod made the announcement that they invented the first quartz movement using a motor and a bi-directional movement. So Michael worked around and with Soprod to develop his exclusive movement. And he spent 5 long and determined years to get his movement just right. I also asked Michael if he ever considered using or developing a mechanical movement with all these same functions. And of course he said he did, but it would be very expensive. But he was also really modest when he said that this was not something that he could create at this time. And he actually deferred this kind of masterpiece mechanical watch movement to someone like Richard Mille. And we know that if Richard Mille created this movement, it would be really super expensive. In fact, it'd probably be a watch that would cost well into the 6 figures. So the quartz movement with Soprod was actually a pretty nice compromise. I'm not really a quartz person at this point. Maybe if it was a Grand Seiko quartz, but mainly because I don't like seeing the ticking motion of a long second hand. But in the Aurora's case, we have the option of seeing it or not seeing it. And if we want to see it, it's really unobtrusive over at 9 o'clock. Plus, this watch does not feel like a quartz watch. It feels like an innovative, technical marvel of a watch. I want to take a minute to talk about the new price of the Aurora, because if we think we've seen it priced significantly less early on, well, that's because we have. And it's not just because he's had major success with it that he decided to randomly jack up the price. Michael actually had a really good and unfortunate reason for doing so, and he's really open about it. So if we really want to learn more about why that is, we can contact him directly through Gavox Watch's website to learn more. I think the I think the Aurora would make a great travel companion because of its GMT function and because of its unique moon phases. I think it would be fantastic to see the different stages of the moon from other countries. So, who do I think this watch is ideal for? Well, I would think it'd be for a real watch collector who already has watches with complications in his collections, because I think he would really appreciate this watch even more. Regardless of the complications we already own, we're not going to own a watch with all of these complications and functions in one package. And I don't think this is a matter of a product that has done so many things yet only a few things right. I think this is a watch with so many functions that is done properly. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you the next time. So just who exactly is Michael Jordan? We know who Michael Jordan is. So who exactly is Michael? So a rabbi, a perpetual calendar, and I think Michael would make a great... No. Well, maybe he would too. I think the Aurora would make a great travel companion.